I was 26 years old and I ended up having cervical cancer and I had to have a hysterectomy. I was happy with that because I had had my 2 kids, but within the first week, the pain tolerance was really low. I was having a hard time with it. And speaking to my doctor, and back then, before it was a huge issue with opiate epidemic, he was on the phone with me, like, just take 2 or 3, take 4 or 5. And I loved it. So it was from there, after I was already healed from my surgery and didn't need those pain medications anymore, I still sought them out and started doing them. And it became, I was stealing them from my family members at first, and then I would make up excuses to go back to a doctor. I cut my hand or I slipped and fell and I needed to get more pain pills. And from there, I just kind of did some research on it. I went out on the street. I figured out that, there are certain people that I could deal with in my life that I thought would be my friends, and they were just loading me up. And then in between that, I started having trouble sleeping, concentrating, being with my kids full time. And I started taking Xanax on top of that. So then my love of Xanax, I would say, was my strongest out of any drug ever. And it would help me sleep. It would help me cope. So eventually I got to the point where I would wake up in the morning and have to do a routine with my kids to get them off to school. And I couldn't do it without taking these pain meds or the Xanax. And it wasn't enough just to take them anymore. I had to snort them. And it got to a point where my son was like, Mom, I need to take Tylenol. I have a headache and I want to snort them like you do. And I couldn't, at that point in time, my self-worth was so low. My relationships were falling apart. I was hiding everything from everyone. And if I was asked about it, I would lie about it. But my husband knew, my parents knew, everybody knew what I was doing. And instead of being honest about it and coming to them, it just developed into this thing where, that's what I had to do to live my life. And then one day I was at a gas station. I ran into this guy that, looked like the type of person that would help me get what I needed to get. And it was a 60-year-old black guy. And he groomed me for about 3 months, giving me all the pills that I wanted for free, not ever having to do anything for him. And the very last step before I knew I needed help, I had taken some heroin. He told me it had fentanyl in it, and I took it anyways, on top of all of the pills and the Xanax I had already taken that day. And I OD'd, and he raped me. He threw me in an abandoned building and left me there to die in Detroit. And luckily for me, the neighbors are the ones that called the cops. So now not only am I wake up in a hospital having all this stuff done to me, not knowing where I was, my husband was there, and he had to go back to this guy's house and actually get my belongings. And that's where I knew, I can't go on like this. At that point in my life, I wanted to die. And I did try to kill myself a few times. I just thought that I could never come back from what I was into. My kids deserved more than I did, or more than what I could give them. My family deserved more. And there were a few times there where, I would take 47 Xanax thinking that it would kill me, and it didn't.